Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is, well, I found it actually very interesting. It's in the news again recently, which got me looking into it, and there's like one short video on it, like 15 minutes, and then there's two like really long ones, like an hour and a half, like a documentary kind of thing, and a podcast. So I've listened to them all, looked into it, and I figured that if there's anybody out there who's looking for like a shorter version, less than nowhere near an hour, basically, that maybe you would find this video interesting because I've condensed a lot of it, obviously. But it is the kidnap and murder of, well, potential murder, well, of a lady called Muriel McKay. This happened in just before the 70s, like late 60s, 70s. So yeah, let's just jump right in. Muriel Freedom McKay was born on the 4th of February in 1914. She was actually born in Australia, and so was her husband, who she met and then married, who was called Alec McKay. They would go on to have 3 children together: Jennifer, Diane, and Ian. And so they lived in Adelaide, which is South Australia, and then her husband, Alec, got a new job. He was into like media, like the Sun and things like that, and he worked for these big companies. He got a new job. He then went and moved to the United Kingdom, to London, because of this new job had such good prospects, and so that is where the family all moved. They ended up living in a place called St Mary's House on Arthur Road in Wimbledon. And they had moved in there when they actually got to England, which was 1958. They were a happy, loving family, you know. Muriel and Alec were just so in love, were so happy together. The children adored them. You know, they led just a really good life. Now, in the sort of late 60s, a guy called Rupert Murdoch went ahead and purchased a massive media outlet, and Alec became a news executive for News Limited, and he became basically Rupert's deputy. So this is why they moved to England. So he's got this, he's really well trusted within the company, within Rupert. By Rupert. Just ignore that. Yeah, by Rupert. So anything that, well, you know what I mean, is executive, and that's that. Like a deputy. Anyway, going back to Alec and Muriel, so they lived a really good life, but they actually had an instance where they had been robbed. They got burgled in their house, and Muriel really did not feel safe after that. So what she did is she like set up this security measure with her husband and her family of a certain knock. So they are a certain ringing of the doorbell, you know, like, I don't know, like SOS style, Morse code. 3 short ones, 2 long ones. I don't really know what it was, but they had this code, and that would let her know that it was Alec at the door. Even then, she still wouldn't open the door until she fully confirmed that it was him, because this is how scared she was, which just is very heartbreaking. But yeah, so they had this plan, and also, you know, like what are they called? What are they called? A chain, like a security kit chain, where you put it in and you slide it across, and then the door doesn't open. She had one of them that was always on. Whenever she was in the house, that was always on. So basically, no one could get in. Yeah. So in December, for like Christmas-ish, Rupert decides that he is going to take his wife Anna, and they are going to go to, I think it was Australia actually, for a holiday, like over Christmas. So he then tells Rupert, no, not Rupert, Alec, who was his deputy. He's in charge of everything. He gets the car, the chauffeur. He gets dropped off at work. All the mod comms, whilst Rupert is away, and Alec is looking after everything. Okay. Now we're going to go to the 29th of December in 1969. Now, Muriel had spent the day going in and out. She went and ran some errands, and she got back home at about 5-ish, half 5-ish, something like that. All of this time, Alec. Why do I keep getting those names mixed up? Alec was in work. He ended up getting home at about 7 or ish. Around 7 anyway. So you're thinking like an hour and a half, 2 hours after Muriel actually got home. So he goes to the door, he rings the bell in the special way that they know each other, and she doesn't answer the door. So that's strange, okay? Thinks, all right, well, maybe she's upstairs. Let's try again. So he tries again. Still no answer. No movement. No, nothing. So what he does is he tries the handle. And as he tries the handle, the door just swings right open. It's fully open, which is alarm bell straight away for him because Muriel was terrified. She would never ever leave the door open. They even had a secret freaking knock, for goodness sake. So why was this door wide open? As soon as he goes in, there's some papers on the floor. The contents of Muriel's handbags were scattered about. The telephone in the wall had been ripped out. And like I said, because of this robbery that they had before, some jewelry was actually stolen from them. Muriel was really cautious. So I was wondering how the heck she let anybody in that was not Alec, that did not know this secret jingle that they had. We'll get into that because I did find out what happened much later on. After I'd done all of the research, I actually came across something that let me know what happened. So we'll get into that. But Muriel was nowhere to be seen. A chair was upheaved. You know, just general signs of a burglary break-in. Some things had been stolen. They had a dachshund, which was still there, completely unharmed, completely fine. But they had this fire, which was another instance of Muriel. Something bad must have happened to Muriel because they had a fire and they had 2 dogs previous, and apparently these dogs had been injured or killed by fire. I don't know whether they just ran into the fire. I have no clue how it happened, but it did. And that meant that she was very cautious of the fire around the dog, and they always had a fire guard on and whatnot, and she would have never left the house without the fire guard on, just in case. The fire guard was completely off. So he's, thinking there's something very, very wrong here. He found bits of, like, tape and things there. Basically, something had gone wrong somewhere. So he called the police about 8 o'clock and reported her as missing. The police turned up and they started their investigation, and it was quickly changed from a missing person to a kidnapping. And let me tell you, at this moment in time, the police had not had many dealings with kidnappings of such grandeur, as it would turn out, before this at all. They actually found items in the house that were not supposed to be there. They found some elastoplast, a bill hook, which is used a lot in farming and sort of cutting down shrubs and things like that, some baling twine and a newspaper, and they were not in the house before. So clearly somebody had been in that house, left these items there, everything was a mess, and Muriel was missing. Put 2 and 2 together and you get 4. The phone was repaired, and the family kind of waited around to see whether anything would happen, whether somebody would call or whatever. And at 1 a.m, somebody did call. It was a person who identified themselves as M3, which they said stood for Mafia 3. They claimed that they were this big group, that they had kidnapped Muriel, and they demanded £1 million for her, safe return. Now, it turns out that they actually didn't want Muriel. They wanted Anna, Rupert's wife. That was the target. But they had followed the car down. They followed it back to, obviously, Alec's house, because he was using it because Rupert wasn't there. And they ended up taking Muriel instead of Anna as a case of mistaken identity. But, they'd already done it now, so they were just going to roll with it. And they were ringing up Alec saying, give me £1 million or you'll never see your wife again, basically. Now, these ransom calls continued and continued and continued. They said that they wanted the money dropped off by a certain date. That date came. They never got a call again, but they got a letter. In over the next like 40 days, they would have like 18 calls between them. There were letters sent as well. Like I said, 3 letters were received, all with post stamps from Tottenham or Wood Green. And these were written in Muriel's writing, and she was going on about how scared she was, how cold she was, how she wanted Alec to just give them the money so that she could come home. You know, absolutely devastating stuff. That she was blindfolded, so if her handwriting was a little squiggly, it was because she was blindfolded, but I think it was confirmed to be her handwriting. And all this time, they're threatening to kill her if they don't give them money. I think there were 5 letters total, but do you know what's really funny? Well, it's not funny, but it is, in a way. It was kind of thought that these letters were all written the same day, right? So, they received a letter. I don't know. I have listened to all this, but from the top of my head, I can't remember. But they received a letter. Say it was the one about her saying, please comply, I'm freezing cold. Don't know how long I can last. Please send the money. Then the next letter that came would say, like, you're going to get a call. You're going to get in touch with somebody that calls himself M3. Yada, yada, yada. Please do as they say. Don't get the police involved. But the funny thing was that they had already been contacted by M3 weeks ago. And they were already calling them M3. So this letter was not written after the first one because it didn't make any sense. It's like they were all written at the same time as proof of life, which wasn't proof of life. And then they sent them out, but they sent a different... Excuse me. Sorry, my voice isn't very good today for some reason. They sent them out at different times, but they sent them out in the wrong order. That letter should have gone first, and then the one after should have gone next. First one should have gone next. So anyway, they kept ringing up, kept speaking to the family. The family just wanted proof of life because, like I said, they really did think that these letters were made all at once and that maybe Muriel wasn't even alive again at the minute. But the police had nothing to go on, so they're just going off of, I don't know, well, nothing really. They had a couple of sightings of, like, a car potentially in the area, potential sightings of a couple of people, but they didn't have hardly anything to go on. And let me tell you, this was one of the first ransoms that they had ever experienced, so they didn't even really know how to handle it. They had 2 attempts at dropping off this ransom money. Bearing in mind, Alec didn't have this kind of money, and he literally told them he doesn't have that kind of money. £1 million is a crazy number to ask for. And that he didn't have it, but they're like, well, you've got some friends who can give it you, yada, yada, yada. So they were dead set on the million, basically. And it's so sad because I've heard some of the conversations and Alex literally saying, you know, how about I shoot myself, that'll solve everything because I can't get you this money. And he was so devastated over Muriel that he was literally telling them, if I'll give you something, I'll shoot myself and that'll solve all the problems. So he was heartbroken. To the point where most of the time he had to be sedated because he was just so devastated. It was the 1st of February 1970 to drop off this money, but it was abandoned because there was a big police presence around and, you know, nothing happened basically. So then they tried again, and this was 5 days later. This was the 6th of February. It was asked that Diane and Alec, I think, went and did the drop-off, but the police thought that was too dangerous, so they subbed in for them and dressed up like them, and 2 police officers did it instead. They followed these instructions. It was like, go to this phone box and it will ring. That person ringing will tell you to go to here. You'll find a letter. You need to go to this place, this place, this place. They had to get on a train. All sorts. And that train was like to Epping, and then they had to go to another phone box there, which then rang, and that gave them instructions. They had to go to a used car lot called Gates Garage, so they took a taxi down there. And then there was a minivan parked there, and they said that they had to leave this money opposite the minivan. Also, I don't know whether this was the first attempt or the second attempt, but there was something to do with like paper flowers. Coloured paper flowers left around as well, and that was to mark the spot where the money should get dropped off to. Not sure which drop off that was though. I think it might have been the second one. Not sure. So anyway, I believe they're feigning it. Like, I don't think they've got £1 million in these 2 briefcases. They wanted it in like 5s, 10s, and 20s, but they ended up putting it all in 5s. And they just wanted to catch them or just see if they could catch anybody, basically. So I'm not sure whether they actually had the money in. And I know at one point the ransom they did say that they would take half. Because I believe they just thought they were getting nowhere. So whether that was half in them wallets, I can't remember. But anyway, the place was still swarming with police. All undercover. There were like 3 Hells Angels on bikes, all undercover police officers. There was police everywhere. They were surveilling the area. They were just really desperately searching for anyone that may come for this money. Nobody came for this money. And let me tell you, they did get something from it though. It wasn't all a sham because they noticed a car. It was a Volvo. It had a broken tail light and it had 1 person in it, and this car drove past. It drove past the garage slowly 4 times between 8 and 10:30. Then at 10:47 it passed again. This time it had 2 men in it. So they managed to get the registration of this, which was XGO994G, because it was a suspicious vehicle. It kept turning up, it kept circling around 1 person, then there were 2 people. It was odd. So they noted that down. But honestly, everything was against this from the off, because I'm not even joking. A well-wishing member of the public, a couple, saw these briefcases sitting near the van, and they, I guess, thought that it was some sort of act of you know what. So they reported the suspicious items to the police. The area is swarming with police. They know all about this, but sadly, not everyone did, I guess, because the other police turned up, and I shouldn't be laughing because it foiled it, and it's really heartbreaking. But I think at this point, they already believe that Muriel was sadly deceased. And it was just a point of trying to catch them at this point. Well, they were really hoping that she was still alive, obviously. But just with the letters and stuff, they kind of were thinking that she wasn't. But yeah, these people reported these briefcases to the police. The police turned up. They took the briefcases away under suspicious circumstances. And then that was that, because the sedan, well, they never got out, because guess what? The police turned up and frigging got these briefcases and lugged them away. It's unbelievable. But of course, like I said, they did get this Volvo from it, so they started looking into that. It was registered to a guy who lived in a farm, and it was Rook's farm. They also noted that somebody had actually seen, like I said, they'd seen this car, and it turns out that it was a dark Volvo that they'd seen around the time of Muriel's disappearance, so that matched too. And another one reported that it was at the Mackay, driveway at 6 p.m. So whether that's when Muriel went missing, I'm not sure, as in a timeline. They did actually note that this car was also there at the first drop-off, but they just assumed that it was some other undercover police or something like that, and they didn't think too much of it. So yeah, everything was kind of tying into this car. What they do is they go to Rook's farm and they basically raid the joint. This was at like the 7th February at 8 a.m. as well. The owners of the farm were from Trinidad originally, moved to the UK, and his name was Arthur Hossein, and he had a German wife. And Arthur's youngest sibling, Nizamuddin, also was there at the time, living with them. Now, he had actually worked on the farm as a labourer for a bit since August, but he didn't live there all the time. It was just sort of a temporary thing, but he was living there at the time. And inside, let me tell you, they found some evidence. So these guys claimed innocence. They didn't know anything about it. Yada, yada, yada. It wasn't them. They found a notebook with all this stuff in, right? And the torn out pages matched the pages that her letters were sent on. Muriel's letters were sent on. There was also an indent on one of it that matched some of the words that was in the letters too. So as if she used it to lean on, and it indented the cardboard or whatever it was. They found the matching twine and the roll of tape, which matched what was found in Muriel's house. And the bill hook that was left in Muriel's house was actually found to belong to a neighbouring farm. They fingerprinted Arthur, and his fingerprints matched fingerprints that were on the physical letters from Muriel, and the newspaper that was left behind in Muriel's house, they also matched that too. So they also had fingerprint evidence against these guys. Well, Arthur. Then Nazadim's voice was actually compared to the voice on the phone calls, and it was said that that was his voice. He claims that it wasn't and that he never made a phone call ever. Who you believe is up to you. But yeah, because they did like testings of his voice, you know. Well, they listened to it and then they did test it. Now, Arthur in his family life was actually said to be quite abusive. He met a lady, his German wife. She already had children, and the children would say that he would abuse her a lot. He would beat her. They didn't like him. They didn't ever want to call him dad because they didn't see him in that way. And he was just not a very nice guy, according to them. So yeah, it's just a bit of background of what he was like in his home life too. Because he still claimed that he was innocent, I think, of all this. So I guess you make your own mind up on that. Anyway, they were arrested and they were eventually sent to trial through all this evidence. Now, one thing I do want to note as well. So Arthur's kids, the family, because his younger brother lived with them, Nizamuddin, Arthur was very, like, controlling and, like, abusive, I guess, to him as well. So Nizamuddin, my apologies, would often be forced in a way to do what Arthur wanted him to do. And Arthur was like 12 years older than him too. I believe Nizamuddin was in his 20s when this occurred. So it was kind of thought that basically Arthur said jump and he said how high, because he just always felt like he had to do what Arthur said, pretty much. That aspect of the case just made me sad, if in fact it's true. Anyway, they went to trial. It was found out that the brothers were suffering financial difficulty after buying the farm. It fully broke Arthur. He was trying to do a clothing line or something like that. What's it called? Tailor? He was like a tailor. And he was also trying to raise cattle to slaughter them and all that lot, and just be a fully functioning farm. He wanted to join in with the farm community, which apparently they were kind of laughing at him because he didn't fit in. Especially not around that time, being a farmer, because he was like, it was basically said that there were no real black farmers at that time, and they were all sort of white, so he wasn't widely accepted either. So basically, it was thought because of this financial difficulty, they decided that, or one of them, both of them, who knows, that they were gonna kidnap Anna, get the $1 million ransom, and then that was all their financial worries gone. They did the wrong person. That was that. They never actually found Muriel's body. So they were doing this trial without a body. They thought that she was deceased, obviously. With all the letters and things as well. Another thing with the letter, one of the letters came through much later. So she was kidnapped in December. The day after, her daughter did a TV appeal to the public where she actually spoke. And that was the only time she featured on many of them, but that was the only time she ever spoke. And I'm not kidding, like 20 days later, she said, oh, yes, she's got a letter from her mum, which was in her mum's writing. Her mum had written it, but it said, I saw you speaking on the TV appeal yesterday or the other day. And last night, I don't know when it was, but it was very close to when this letter was supposedly written, basically. And I really wish you could convince your dad to give him the money because I really want to come see you and be home and all this sort. And, you know, really, really sad. But the fact that she'd said that she had just seen her, even though the only time she spoke was weeks and weeks ago, was just really, really odd. So my question, just to get my own thoughts into this a minute, is what the heck happened to her? Because why were they not giving proof of life if, for example, she was still alive? It didn't make any sense. So to me, she was no longer alive at that point. But if they were trying to get the money, why would they kill her and then try and prove she's alive unsuccessfully? Because how can you prove someone's alive when they're not? So it's really strange. So I was curious as to whether she died due to some natural causes or stress or something, and that they didn't actually murder her in that sense. They didn't kill her. But obviously, their actions resulted in her death. So it's still kidnap murder in my eyes. They shouldn't have done it. But did she actually just die? Is my question. Let me know what you guys think on that one. Brothers were charged with murder, kidnap, blackmail, and they were convicted on the 6th of October in 1970. They both got life sentences, and Arthur got plus 25 years for the kidnapping. Nizamuddin only got 15 because the jury, again, really felt sorry for him. They kind of thought that, not sorry for him, but did in a way. They kind of thought the same, that Arthur was really pushing him and forcing him to do these things. He still did them. It was still wrong. And he admitted to a lot of things. Like Arthur was saying in the trial, I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty. And he admitted to tailing them, putting the flowers down to where they had to meet, finding the white van to put the stuff there. Do you know what I mean? He admitted to all of these things that basically proved that Arthur freaking did it anyway. But I don't think there was ever any evidence to say that he actually did anything. But they never found her body anyway. They carried on looking through the farm. They dug it up. They looked everywhere, but they couldn't find her. And the strange thing is, so there's a massive theory in this case that she was fed to the pigs. Basically, that came from, and I believe it's one of the earlier things, that one of the detectives there who was looking for her had just read a true crime thing or a story where the victim was fed to the pigs and everything was gone. So he literally mentioned that because he just read it. And then everyone was like, oh, maybe she was fed to the pigs. So they went and looked through the pig slurry and everything. They couldn't find anything. Now, one thing I found really interesting in this case too, which I haven't said until now, because I forgot about it until right now. You know, so Arthur's wife, she had children. When Arthur got arrested, his wife, I'm not sure what she's called, she had a stash of money behind this hidden compartment, right, that nobody knew about. I really thought she didn't even know about, but she did, I guess. So she went and checked it to see whether he had put any money in there, because he was in jail. She went and had a look into it, and she found something. So she went to her daughter and said, if you found something in this case, what would you do? And she said, well, I don't know. Have you found something? So her mother said, oh, no, I'm just asking, just hypothetical. But she had found something. So she goes to see Arthur in prison, right? And she says to him, you did this, and I know you did this because I found what you've hidden. And she said, these are what her daughter said that her mother said, basically. She had never seen a black man drain of colour and just sort of look really pale and white before. But that's what he did, because he knew what she had found. Now, please don't take that as my word or anything, because it's not, but I'm just saying it how they said it to explain it a bit more, because he must have just gone so pale because he knew what she had found. And basically, it was the jewellery that was missing from the house, from Muriel's house. There was some jewellery stolen as well as other things, and that was missing. And the police had even gone to the pawnbrokers and said, if you see this jewellery, please, let us know who's giving it you, yada, yada, yada. Well, he had it hidden in his house in a compartment. So he's thinking, shit. Oh, pardon my French. Anyway, she decides that, because she's so terrified, and there was potential that there was more than just these two involved, because, well, just hang on a minute. We'll get into that in a second. But she decided to contact her brother, and they went and threw it in the Thames, apparently. So yeah, but apparently he had this jewelry in his house. But yeah, there was potential that there was more people involved in it. It's speculation. A bit later on, I read that somebody, I'm not sure who this woman was, but mentioned the name Adam and said that he was definitely involved in it, and he got them two as his fall guys. And I don't know. It's potential that the real killers, or not the real killers, or the real masterminds were not even captured, because they thought that these guys, these brothers, were not real criminal masterminds, but the people that actually did this were a bit more criminal mastermindy, I guess. So maybe there were more people involved, who knows? Anyway, the boys went to jail They asked for parole, they got denied. In 2009, Arthur actually passed away in prison. Nizamuddin served his sentence, and once he was released, he did 20 years, I think. Once he was released, he was actually deported back to Trinidad, and he is not allowed back in the UK. Now, interestingly, there was a documentary done on all this, and one of Muriel's daughters, I believe it was Diane, I think, watched this, and Nizamuddin was interviewed in it, right? And she saw in him what she believed was a want to tell the truth and to finally give her peace as to where her mother was buried, because they've searched, they've looked, and they have not found her. So she has made the trip out there, and she's met him a few times. And very recently, she met him again. Well, no, sorry, she didn't meet him a few times. She spoke to him and stuff, and she wanted the police to let him in so that he could show her where his mother's body was. I believe they won't let him in. He's not allowed in here. So she went and actually travelled out to Trinidad with her son, I believe, or godson or something like that. And they went and spoke to him. And that was in January of 2024, so literally a few months ago. He said that they give him all of this evidence. They give him pictures of the farm, because he said she's buried on the farm. They give him pictures of the farm. They give him old farm, what it used to look like, what it looks like now, try and compare, try and point out where she is, basically. Now, they've searched this area before, but apparently they thought it was a lot smaller than it actually was. It was a lot bigger. And so they're now thinking that they maybe didn't cover all of the area. The year before as well, he actually signed a contract to reveal like where her body was, and he would get like 40 grand or something like that. Basically, anyway, because of this trip out, the police have decided that they think there's enough evidence. They are gonna research within the next like 6 weeks or something. They are going to dig that up, and they are going to relook for Muriel's body. And I pray to everybody that they finally find her, because her children just want somewhere to lay her body to rest now. I believe her husband died in like the 80s of a heart attack. Heartbreaking. What happened to Muriel was absolutely devastating. And you want to know how they got her, because she was so cautious of safety. She wasn't inside the house. She was outside the house. She saw the men pull up and head towards her, and she ran into the house, but she didn't put the chain on because she was panicking, didn't lock up properly or whatever, and they got in, and that is how they got her, which is just fully devastating, because she was so cautious, and she was literally outside, and that's how they got her. Heartbreaking. This was the 16th of May that the police confirmed that they were going to sort of look back and dig it again. So, like I said, they're going to take 6 weeks, they're going to do a major dig, and they're going to look in all the areas described by Nizam Hussain. And I really pray that they finally find Muriel's body. But I guess we will find out. Watch this space. Comment if you guys hear anything or know anything more, because I'm so interested in this case. Just so heartbreaking that it's a fully case of mistaken identity, and then they just sort of ran with it. Anna was actually spoken to as well, Rupert's wife, who was supposed to be kidnapped. And she was like, they were like, oh, well, are you not terrified that, you know, they wanted you and you're so thankful that you got away and whatever? And she was like, no, not really affected my family. Obviously, it's affected the McKays, but not really us. And I was like, I would be heartbroken. I don't know if she's just putting on the front or whatever, I don't know. But I would be heartbroken that somebody else had been kidnapped instead of me. Not that I want to get kidnapped, I don't, obviously. But do you know, like, if something, you had a close quarter like that, you'd be so thankful. You'd be just a mess of emotions. In my opinion, anyway. I can't speak for everyone. That would just be how I think I would be. So, yeah. But yeah, that's it. That is the end of this case. Thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to. If not, fair enough. And that's all I have today in the case of Muriel McKay. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, bye.